information is there. But you see, there's some degree of complacency. There's
a huge degree of complacency.
Because, it affects the gays, it affects blacks, it doesn't affect me. So, and it's not going to affect me. And that's not true. Something is going to come through the air. And blacks will be the first to go. But you will too.
Well, we're hoping to mitigate that, where we don't end up in that situation. And I think that people have to realize...
But why would you mitigate it? That your planet is warming because of all these baby-making people, correct?
Well, that's an assumption, too, that I don't particularly buy into.
Oh, I know. But you see, the overpopulation issue was used as the excuse for the development of HIV.
Yeah. No,
now the overpopulation issue is being used as the excuse for impacting on these people death to save the planet. I see.
All right. Mr. Trafficant, let's close that circle. He, in what seemed to be honorable fashion, followed up on a request that you had made of him to look into this information. And he wrote a letter to David Walker, the Comptroller General of the United States. Now, again, the timing gets very interesting here. July 23rd, 2001.
Let me address that.
Let me finish real quickly, and I just want to let people know what he said. This was James Trafficant, a member of Congress, and he said, I'm writing to you in regard to a matter that's been brought to my attention by a constituent of mine, Dr. Boyd Graves, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I'm respectfully requesting an investigation and closes the smoking gun, the U.S. Special Virus Cancer Program documents. And so Trafficant was nailed. Very shortly thereafter, he ended up in a federal pen, and then 9/11.
Well, all in that same time frame. Yeah, he went to the pen after that.
Right.
Yeah, we were supposed to go to Washington the week after 9/11. Of course, that didn't happen.
You and who?
Joel. Yeah, it didn't happen. We got buried with 100 tons of demolition, and yet here we are 7 years later. Here we are, because this is the truth. We have found the federal program at the genesis of the wellspring of HIV and AIDS. We have found that program.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, and again, the question for any politician, the question for any concerned citizen, one question. If there was a federal virus program that preceded HIV and AIDS, should that program be reviewed?
That's the question. Should it be reviewed? We're not making any claims other than that at this point.
That's all.
But this...
well, we have a right to. Right. But that's the basic question. That is the line in the sand. That if you say no, then we'll address that. But if there was a federal virus program that preceded HIV and AIDS, that program should be reviewed. Yes or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
what we're dealing with today.
Yep. Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with.
That's what we're dealing with. And I've started every single letter that I've written to all of these folks with that particular phraseology. If there was a federal virus program, development program, that preceded HIV/AIDS, should that program be reviewed and investigated? And apparently for a lot of people they think no.
No, apparently for a lot of people they think yes and cannot say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the silence comes in. Because if our system of government was legitimate, it would only take one small peep of impropriety, and the system would correct it.
Mm-hmm.
But here, we're screaming from the highest bell towers,
right,
and the all-seeing eye looks the other way.
Mm-hmm.
That should tell you something.
Yeah.
And I question people that it's understandable for them to believe in a God theory when you have a government with the same God theory, all-seeing principle.
You want to hear something else that, I'm constantly surprised by this whole thing, the further along I get with it. There's a gentleman whose name is Dr. Colin Ross, and he's somebody who, I guess I couldn't call him a friend, but he's certainly someone who I respect or respected, and he wrote a book called Bluebird, which had to do with a whole lot of government mind control programs that were actually ongoing around the same time as Naomi, Artichoke and MK Ultra and some of the real early ones, in the 40s. And he talks a lot about Tuskegee and how these things were sort of parallel developments,
Absolutely.
But get this, I've interviewed him on the air, and I did an interview which I consider a very good one, and he talks a lot about. He's gotten some 15,000 pages of declassified, mostly redacted, but all kinds of information from CIA and other nefarious sources with regard to all of these different mind control programs that he was primarily involved in. See, he's a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and he's interested in the mind side of the game, right? At any rate, I sent him a note about a month and a half ago and said, Dr. Ross, I'd appreciate it if you'd take a look at this document for me. And I sent him progress report number 15, right? And I also sent him the flow chart. And he sent me a note back and said, well, it's sort of a long report. Can you have me just look at a certain part of it, or do you want me to read the whole thing, right? And I could tell that he hadn't looked at it, right? And I said, well, what I'd like you to do is look at the flow chart first and then get back to me, right? That was the last I heard of Dr. Ross.
Hey, where is he out of?
Well, he's in Dallas, Texas. He runs a place called the Ross Institute for Psychological Trauma, I think is the formal name for his practice.
Very good. Well, there is something to do that people need to address relative to mind control. Again, the Wizard of Oz comes into play, pay no attention kind of mentality, and we have took it hook, line, and sinker. Pay no attention to the black man and the flowchart, and look at what we do. It doesn't even matter that the flowchart is an authentic government blueprint. It doesn't matter. But it is, and it does matter to me.
And it matters to me, boy.
I have a right to life, an inalienable right to life, and my actions through these last 15 years have sought to improve the security of my homeland, the United States of America.
All right, well, I'm all with you. There are two important things. We mentioned that there's a cure, at least one. There's probably more than one in my opinion, but we know there's at least one, and it's patent number 5676977. You can find that at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office if you want to do a search. What do you think should be done with regard to Tetrasil? Do you want clinical trials? What's the idea here?
Well, that's part 2 of the global plan to end HIV and AIDS, and that is the immediate clinical trial testings of this 1997, 10 years old, it'll be 11 years old, cure, sitting on the shelf. That's preposterous and appalling, that either it works or it doesn't. And the only way to determine if it is helpful in treating people with HIV and AIDS is to begin the clinical trials. I can't think that there's any other answer to that question.
Okay, so that's what we want to do with that patent. We want to find out openly and transparently if the stuff works or not.
We have that right. We have that right.
Absolutely. And we know that it does work. We're just playing devil's advocate here.
Well, we know that it would be a wonderful supplement to the pharmaceutical regimen that people go through with HIV and AIDS, whereby if you could take a dose of something once every 2 years, why would you need to take pills every 8 hours?
Yeah, that we're killing you alongside the other stuff.
Yeah, and also I wanted to mention that we have challenged Dr. Robert Gallo to a debate. This coming Thursday is National Black AIDS Day.
Good. This was the next thing on my list, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking at Northern Illinois University on National Black AIDS Day Thursday evening. But as a consequence, I've challenged Dr. Robert Gallo to join me and to debate the sheep sequences in HIV. It is just appalling that if HIV has Icelandic sheep sequences, it did not come out of Africa.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Gallo, so far, has he responded to your request?
Well, his silence is a response as far as we're concerned. We're going to have a second lectern, a second podium with his name on it, whether he's there or not.
All right. Well, I sent him a follow-up as well after I heard about your invitation, and I invited him to come here on the program to talk about it as well, and I received a similar response to you. So, all right, that's a big deal, though. This Thursday at Northern Illinois University. It's in DeKalb, Illinois. I actually went to college there for a couple years. I'm from that particular part of Illinois, and it's a big school. It's a major school in Illinois, and it's a big deal that they're having you speak there, Boyd.
Well, we're challenging the student body. We want Northern Illinois University to be the first university in this country where every member of the student body has downloaded the 1971 blueprint flowchart of the Special Virus Program. It is our calling card for our future, and it is something that we cannot set aside. We must address this issue of biological warfare today. It cannot wait until tomorrow.
I agree, because every day we get closer to the next thing. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, congratulations on your upcoming appearance at NIU. I think that's a great accomplishment.
Well, I appreciate that. Let me just add, too, that we have also filed the brief in the federal lawsuit appeal, and we're hopeful that we have used a multi-tangential approach to fight the synthetic origin of HIV and AIDS. And we're hopeful that if not one, maybe two of our tangents might be successful. But, Mike, thank you so much for having me on again. We will go forward. The people will win. But it's going to take the good people of America, of all colors, to stand up for the truth.